My hair sure is something today. Hello everybody, my name is Jared, and today we're going to be doing a work video for Kai Chisaki, aka Overhaul from Boku no Hero Academia. Now, if you don't know who that is, he's just been introduced at the very end of Season 3, and he's been having his own arc in the manga. It was amazing. It's my favourite arc that they've actually done. As for other things, I have been away from filming, like directly chatting to you guys for a little while. My reasoning for that is I have had a few things going on in my life. We bought a house. This is not the house. Our house won't be ready until January, but we will be moving into our own permanent house that we have bought at the end of January, and I'm incredibly excited. And other things, I have recently had quite a big operation. I won't go into it in this video. I'll probably do a video explaining it at some point. But I have had a really big operation, so I've been off work for a little while and recovering and things like that, so I haven't really been facially suitable to film anything recently. But, back on topic, we're going to be today making his beak. It sounds really weird to explain if you don't know what the character design looks like. Yeah, he wears a beak. I believe he's supposed to be based on a plague doctor, since he's afraid of germs. So, we're going to be making the beak today. I'm going to be basically doing the entire process of planning how to make the beak, patterning out the beak, and making the base of the beak today, and then in the next video we're going to be working on detailing it and finalising it and priming and painting and all that kind of thing. Also how to attach it to your actual head. But yeah, I hope you'll stay tuned. He is a really interesting character, and I really hope people are going to like him as much as I do. I mean, I went all the way to make a beak for him, so clearly I love him. But without further ado, let's get on with part 1. Go!
Now the first thing we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be deconstructing the mask itself. What I tend to do is I will gather a lot of sketches, I will gather a lot of cool manga or anime stills. Now what I'll do really is I'm going to make sure that every single angle I can possibly get of the mask I have a reference for. So I have a side shot, a 3/4 shot, straight on shot, both sides, and underside and above. It also helps if you can get any shot where it makes it more clear how it's attaching to his head. Then I'm going to make planning sketches from all of the angles. I mainly focused for these planning sketches on the angles I didn't really already understand. So the dip of the curve of the beak itself, it just sort of goes out and then down a little bit, and I was trying to figure out how that curve went and how it sits on his cheeks, around his nose, the attachment itself, and the little details like stuff like the little stitch marks on the beak and the little, I can only describe them as like clock cogs that are attached to the side of his beak. At this point I will always put in as much detail as possible. I will make notes on what fabrics and what materials I'm using. I will also make notes on colours, and I'll use potential colours or texture swatches, so stuff like how I want this to look, how I would achieve that, so on, so forth. And I sketch this from every angle I can. Try and consider also the proportions that it has in relation to your own head. I also at this point try and consider fabrics or ways I would actually attach this to my head. So obviously they don't have to think that through too intensely when they're actually fabricating a manga character, but when you're making it in real life you need to think about what is actually going to support the weight of the prop and what is actually going to be comfortable for you to wear. Now we're going to move on to actually drafting the pattern for this piece. What I always do is I take a rough piece of paper, something like construction paper, and I just sketch out a rough piece. This will have the basic proportions of what I need, it will be the basic shape of what I need, but it does not have to be 100% accurate. I just measure the width of my face and how long I want it to go out, and then I'll just sketch out the basic idea of what it's going to look like, because we can change that, we can add more paper, we can redraft it, but this is going to be your initial sketch. First of all, what I do is I draft one side panel that can be cut twice so that I can get an idea of how that top part of his beak is going to sit on my face. And those two sides, they should almost look a little bit like a pelican style of beak. Then all I did was I held those two pieces up where they would sit on my face, and I made little adjustments to the sizing at that point. So if it needs to be a little bit longer to meet the base of my jaw, I will just add a little bit of width there. if it needs to be a little bit smaller, if it's not flattering shape-wise. I know it's hard for a beak to be flattering, but you know what I mean. You can reduce things and change things at that point, and then I will redraft that piece. Then I take a measurement from the base of the beak to the tip of the beak from the underside. I use a ruler to sketch out a line that is that length, and then I use a ruler to add a width mark going across the bottom of it, and that will be the width of your jaw. You should have what looks like an upside down capital T. Then we're going to sketch out what the base of the beak looks like from the underside. So you're going to sketch out what his under view of his beak looks like at this point. To me, it looks a little bit like a boat that is cut in half. I don't know if that's a weird thing to say, or an elongated half lemon. Now, to get this pattern perfectly symmetrical, what I do is I sketch out one half of it, fold it in half, and then I cut that out while it's folded in half, and you should be able to unfold it, and it will make a beautiful symmetrical piece. So you want to fold it down the length line. Then I cut a thin, I would say like 1.5 centimeter width piece of paper, and that was also by the length of sort of the base of the beak up to like the top of the curve of the beak. You can see what I'm doing here, and I cut that so that it tapers into a point at the curve. Then I will tape everything together with washi tape, and I will make sure that everything is sitting nicely. So this is going to be your final draft of the actual beak itself. So you want to make sure that everything is sitting how you want it to sit, because this is what the actual foam is going to be transferred into. So at this point, I'll always double check, is it sitting nicely across my nose? Is it sitting nicely across the cheek area? Does it have the same curve structure? Just making those little adjustments to make sure that that final pattern that you're going to end up with is absolutely perfect. Then finally, I'll cut a little square to close the tip of the end of the beak. So as you can see there, there's that open end at the end of the beak, and we're just going to cut a little square, and that will serve as the pattern for that end piece. And that should be your finished pattern. Then I drew each pattern onto the craft foam that I'm actually going to be using. I'm actually using a very thin EVA foam. What I used was the 0.5 centimeter foam, and all I did there was sketch out 2 side panels and one of all of the other pieces. Now as I go along, I'm just taping everything together with washi tape, trying it on, making sure everything is looking perfect. You don't want to get to the finished stage and realise it doesn't fit comfortably on your face. So I cut every single one of these out, and then I attach them all together with hot glue. After each seam is dry, I actually added a little bit of hot glue on the inside of the mask, just to strengthen all of the seams. Because it's actually hidden inside the mask, it doesn't really matter, and it also means that it's not going to like crack if, say, it's popped into a box with some other props, or when it's travelling. I also used washi tape to hold things together while it was drying. That just means that I'm not going to have like weird, hard, big, bulky seams. Everything's going to sit together really nicely, and I'm also still seeing it come together as it's going along. Then we're going to draft our details for the actual mask. First of all, for drafting the armour section of the mask, what we're going to do is we're going to sketch around these side panels again, and sketch into that a flat-ended V shape. You can see what I'm doing here. Then we're going to thicken the end and the sides, carving the underside into a curve like so. This will form the side parts of the armour on the sides of his beak. Then we're going to take our sketch onto a normal craft foam, so one you can get from any normal party store, kids activity store. We're going to sketch that out twice onto the craft foam, and we're going to cut those out and attach them to the side parts of the beak with hot glue. And we're going to smooth that down with our fingers, so just gently smooth it down, so not actually touching the hot glue, just the craft foam. Then we're going to cut another strip of foam that is the width of the tip of the beak by the length of the beak up to the top of that armour. So you can see where the armour ends here. We're just going to draft that little strip there. And again, we're going to attach that with hot glue. We're going to cut out 7 round pieces of this craft foam. Those are going to be about 1 centimetre round. So a centimetre across, centimetre up, down, perfect circle, and we're going to cut out 7 of those. And then we're going to glue those onto the little curved up parts of the armour, just like so, almost like a little dimple. And then the last 5 will be going up the front part of the beak. It should look a little bit like bolts. Then we're going to cut out little cog shapes like the clock cogs we discussed earlier, and those will be 2 centimetres around. And we're going to cut out 4 of those and glue those in sets of 2 on either side of the beak.
So that was part 1 of my work video for making my beak from Boku no Hero Academia for Kai Chisaki / Overhaul. I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and please wait around for part 2, I'm rubbish at numbers, for part 2, which is going to be coming on along hopefully in the next 2 weeks. I do tend to space them a little bit, so you don't get too many work videos in one go. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have a go at making the beak using this tutorial, please do let me know, and please do link me pictures. I love seeing stuff like that. I've had a couple of people send me through things that they've used for my tutorials. Comment down below what you think of Overhaul and his reveal in the anime, because I believe that's been quite controversial of late. Receding hairline gate and all that. Thank you very much, and as always, please remember to be creepy.